Welcome to our training, the Subscription Goldmine, Unleashing Black Friday's Hidden Profits. I'm super excited to be able to share some of the tactics we've used in projects for our clients and seeing bringing great results. We'll be looking at how some of the leaders in the stores run their promos and how you can do so yourself. The material is split in levels and each built on top of the previous, so make sure you follow along in the order that you see here. But first, if you've already made it this far, there's probably no need to mention this, but for the sake of being thorough, let's quickly look at some stats for Black Friday and the significance of this time of the year for mobile app companies. As we all know, Black Friday marks the beginning of the holiday shopping season, and savvy shoppers are looking to save not just on gifts and tech, but also for everything else, including their subscriptions. But how do we take advantage of this opportunity? There's obviously many angles you can take. And while most apps are looking at increasing their marketing spend to win the bidding wars on social, I suggest a different approach. There's two main places to look for new customers. The usual is acquiring new users and converting some of them to paying subscribers. And while this is a vital part of the overall success of your app, it might not be the best time to do it during the busiest shopping season of the year. First of all, you're advertising to a cold audience, which is already flooded with Black Friday deals everywhere. And while many of them are looking for those deals, CPMs rise with at least 30% in the US 3 weeks before Black Friday and remain high till the end of December. So your best bet and your biggest opportunity is your existing user base. This would be considered a warm audience. And as we all know, selling to a warm audience is a lot different than selling to a cold audience. And on top of that, it's free. And speaking about monetizing your existing user base, I recently talked to one of the guys on the team that grew Headspace's monetization. I know for a fact that they weren't always great in monetizing the users, but now they are. And that's why I decided to use them as an example during this training. A consumer app that went to great lengths to improve their monetization and is running Black Friday promotions on their annual subscription. And this is exactly what I'm going to show you how to do. As discussed, the content is split in levels, and we're starting with setting up the foundation. We need to create the offer, then update the store listing, and then display the offer in the app. We'll first talk about setting up the offer, but let's take a quick look at the different offers you can run. There's intro offers, promo offers, and offer codes. Now, this is iOS lingo, but it's pretty much the same in Android. We focus on the intro offers as they're specifically designed for acquiring new customers. Now, there's a few things to consider here. There's only one intro offer per subscription group that you can run. So if you've already ran an intro offer before and want to give this promo to the same people as well, you need a new subscription group. And also another thing to consider is one offer per subscription per territory. So no offer stacking in iOS possible. This is possible in Android though, but offer stacking means you cannot first offer a free trial, and then after the free trial completes, you offer a discounted price. This is not possible on iOS. Now let's look at how to set up the offer in the App Store. Now, this is just a typical setup, but yeah, you go to subscriptions, you select your subscription group. FYI, if you need to select the new subscription group, this is where you do it. Then you either create or select your annual subscription, and then you create an introductory offer to that specific subscription. Then you select the regions where you'd make it available. I suggest selecting all, but that's up to you. Then you select the dates. You run it 1 or 2 days before the day you launch it, which is ideally Black Friday. So you run it like from Thursday or Wednesday before Black Friday, and then you let it run for a few days after. I suggest the Wednesday after Cyber Week is over. In that case, if you decide to extend the promo or, I don't know, have some other type of flexibility, you don't need to go back and make changes to the offer in store. Now, the next thing that we need to set up is how people are going to pay for the intro offer. There's 2 ways to pay for an intro offer. There's pay as you go and pay up front. For annual subs, it's exactly the same. People pay the reduced price for the year when they sign up, and the next year they renew the normal price. Now, if you're running some other duration, like a month, you need to decide whether you want to have people pay the reduced price for the whole period at once, which would be considered pay up front, or is it on a monthly basis, which is considered pay as you go. For our case, we select pay as you go. We select 1 year. We select the base region, which for us is United States, and we select the price of the promo, which is going to be the 50% off our regular price, which is the same as the Headspace example that we looked at. And that's the basic setup in iOS. Now let's quickly look at Google Play as well. So here you go to subscriptions and select your yearly subscription, create or select. Then you click add offer. From here, you need to select the eligibility criteria for customers. It's either new customer acquisition, upgrade, or developer determined. So for our case, we select new customer acquisition. We add an offer phase here from this button. We select it as a single payment for 1 year, and we want it to be a percentage discount. Now, this is, again, as you can see, pretty much the same as we did in iOS. This is pay as you go, pay up front. Then we click update all discount percentages. We select the regions where we want this offer to be available in. We click set discount. We set whatever percentage we want. This is obviously a little bit different than iOS because here you can create the discount at a specific percentage. We select 50%. We click update. We click save, and our offers are set up. So now that we have the offer, let's tweak our store listing to hint that we're actually running a promo. The main thing you need to think about is updating your screenshots and also your titles and subtitles. Now, you decide how obvious you're going to make it. It could be very subtle, like updating just one of your screenshots and maybe not updating your title and subtitle, or you can be very obvious and update everything. So it's up to you to decide what fits your brand and what fits your audience. And one more thing you can do to boost exposure for your offer, which is running app events. Now, they get indexed in the stores. So if you're smart with the keywords, you can get some extra downloads. And you can also use them if you're running Apple search ads. Now, unfortunately, they're still in beta for Google Play. So not everybody will have access to events in Google Play, but the benefits are more or less the same. Now, most of the updates to your store listing in iOS will require a new version. So make sure you have them ready to launch, which means approved by the App Store team at least a day before Black Friday. And they should also include the changes we'll discuss next. So we have our offer, we have the updated store listing, and now we need to display the offer in the app. Now, the actual setup and coding part is highly specific. It depends on the platform, language, a lot of other things. So it could get very technical, which is not the purpose of this training. But let's look at some examples. Now, you can go the traditional route with just updating your regular paywall and highlighting the offer there. So you would ideally put some extra piece of information on top of your product and highlight the fact that it's on offer and you need to communicate exactly what that offer is. It's also very important to show what is the actual price that people would pay normally and what is the price that they will get during the offer period. Another thing to think about when setting up your offers this way is you need to actually make it specific and make people understand that this is going to be for the first year. So they're only going to be paying the reduced price for the first year, because otherwise someone could feel like you kind of lied to them by letting them think that actually the offer is going to be forever. Or you can do a more tailored approach, which highlights the offer in a more obvious manner. I would actually say that this is maybe the preferred way. At least I think it's the preferred way because it makes the offer feel more personalized to that specific user. It gives them a little bit of FOMO that it's only available today and stuff like that. So yeah, I would say this is potentially the preferred way. It all depends on how flexible you are with your paywall and what changes you can do there easily. Okay, and with all these complete, we're ready to dive into the good stuff. So see you in the next section. It's time to dig deep into how to set up your Black Friday promotion inside of your application. So we're going to focus on the foundational stuff that you need to do. And also, I'm going to try and keep it as straightforward as possible, meaning I'm going to present ways to do it that require minimum effort in terms of development time Black Friday is closing in on us, so you're not going to have a lot of time to do that setup. So that's why we focus on something which is pretty straightforward to set up and doesn't require a lot of time. There's a few components that we're going to focus on, and these are analytics, push, and in-app notifications. Now, there are a few options to choose from when it comes to what platform you use for setting up your promo. There's Firebase, Clevertap, Braze, OneSignal. At this level, I suggest you use Firebase. And here are the reasons why I think you should use Firebase. First of all, the price is very competitive. You can basically use most of it for free. They have a very well maintained SDK, which also supports most of the popular platforms. There's automatic event tracking, which is going to be very helpful in what's coming next. There's push notifications, there's in-app notifications, there's also A/B testing. So basically, it has everything we need at a very good price with a very high quality SDK. So first, we start with analytics to tap into user behavior and their preferences, and we need an analytics system in place. The more popular term would be an event schema, but it's actually an analytics system. And this means tracking the meaningful events in the user flows in your app. As an example, Spotify in its early days relied heavily on analytics to understand user listening habits. By doing so during promotional periods like Black Friday, they could offer personalized subscription deals based on users' favorite artists or genres, which led to higher conversion rates. So, as mentioned at the foundational level, Firebase Analytics is more than enough by facilitating the tracking of in-app purchase events. They have a lot of events that they collect automatically. And as the app scales, there's also the potential to diversify by integrating custom events. Some of the more important in-app events which are automatically collected from Firebase are in-app purchase events, and specifically the in-app purchase, the App Store subscription conversion, which means conversion from a free trial to regular subscription, and subscription renewals as well. Now, here's a little checklist of everything you need to do in this section. Like I said, we're not going to cover the development setup of all these because otherwise this training will end up being a few hours long. But you can go ahead and follow Firebase's documentation. It's very comprehensive and will give you everything you need. And instead, I'll focus on how to set up the campaigns and what to include in them. So once you have Firebase Analytics set up, the next thing is to understand which user insights to look at in the context of running a successful promotion. So one of the most important ones are user demographics, and Firebase is very good with tracking user demographics. It's probably the best from all the platforms that we laid out there because it essentially uses Google Analytics as its engine, which has been the go-to analytics platform for websites. And yeah, it's very, very good for mobile apps as well. But you can use it to look at what are the popular ages in your app, what are the popular locations in your app, what are the popular languages in your app. And this can help you tailor your offers based on those specific demographics. So you can tailor your messaging, you can tailor your images, you can tailor everything based on those specifics. The next key piece is purchase history. We understand what leads users to buy in order to pinpoint where it makes sense to remind them of our offers. Next is engagement levels, where we need to look at where people drop off. Does engagement drop after a certain days of using the app? What's the average session length? And so on and so forth. And all of these can help you make better decisions on how to tailor your offers to your user base. And lastly, we look at what are the most popular features that people use in your app. The reason we do this is because this gives us the opportunity to highlight those specific features in our offers. And now that we know what insights to look at in order to make better offers, it's time to look at the push notifications setup. Now, as an example, in 2021, Duolingo, a language learning app, employed a staggered push notification strategy leading up to Black Friday. Users first received teasers about the forthcoming deal, and then closer to Black Friday, notifications highlighted the limited time nature of the promotion. This layered approach led to a significant uptick in premium subscriptions. Now, again, we won't go into the technical setup of such a campaign in Firebase. We'll instead focus on what is a good sequence to use. And here is my example sequence with 7 push notifications going up. You can feel free to copy and paste this exact sequence or tailor it to your specific needs. Maybe you think it's 7 push notifications are too much. Maybe you have some other reasons to change up the order a little bit, but still focus more on why we are doing this specific push notification. Here you have the whys here. We generate interest and curiosity, then we build anticipation and excitement, then we build up on the urgency, then we heighten the excitement and readiness even more. Then we drive the immediate action when the offer is live. We catch the latecomers, and then we create a last minute rush before the offer is over. So this is what you need to do. And if you decide to do it exactly this way and at these times, it's up to you. Now, I think this is a great sequence, and I think it's going to work wonders for most of you guys out there. But if you decide to change it up a little bit, it's up to you. Now, this is what this looks like in Firebase and how you actually set it up in Firebase. It's, as you can see, it's super simple. I've generated the image for the promo using Dolly, and yeah, it's super simple to do. No crazy setup here. The important part is the targeting, the timing, and everything else. But it's very easy to follow along all of these in setup. Now, 2 things to consider here. Deep links are very important because if you use deep links in your offers with your push notifications, when someone clicks on the push notification, it will open directly into a specific location in your app. And in this location, you can again tailor something specific to what people are clicking on the push notification. The second pro tip that I can give you is to exclude your paying subscribers from your promos. If someone is already subscribed and they cannot purchase the promo, it's not a great idea to actually show them the promo. And we'll talk about that more in the next section, actually. And to wrap things up, let's also add in-app notifications to the mix. While push is great, it might have a limited reach, and it strongly depends on whether you have access to push notifications, and still people can miss your communications for various reasons. As an example, Calm, a meditation app, utilized in-app notifications to inform users about a special Black Friday meditation series available only with a premium subscription. And this not only promoted their deal, but also added content value. Now, here is the in-app message schedule that I suggest. It's designed to complement the push notification schedule that we looked at previously, but it's also designed to extend these messages to users who have not enabled push notifications for your app. So essentially, if you run the in-app notifications in sync with the push notifications with what I showed before, it's basically what's going to give you the best results in this section of your promotion. Now we have when, we have what the in-app message should be, more or less, what image to use, what call to action to use, and we also have the type of in-app notification in Firebase. Firebase has a few different types that you can use. Most of the ones that we're using are the cards and the banners, as you can see here. And this is a simple example setup of something you can do. Again, generated image with Dolly. If you don't want to look for images, you can generate your own. And yeah, that's the setup of in-app notifications in Firebase. Now, to summarize, in this section, we covered how to harness analytics to grasp users' behavior. We discussed how to employ push notifications with deep links for precise user direction. And we also complemented those push notifications with relevant in-app notifications to make sure we get the most coverage and the most exposure to our offers. And with that, we're ready to move on to the next section. Okay, so for those of you who have passed the beginner stage, we're now at the advanced level where we emphasize a more tailored approach and we harness the power of segmentation and multi-channel campaigns to fine-tune the user experience. And we wrap up with journeys and why they're the most powerful way to run campaigns. Now, starting with segmentation, the most important segmentation you need to do is based on the user language. Now, you need to communicate in the native language your users speak. It's a massive boost to conversions, regardless of your audience size. And while this used to be rather expensive if you wanted to translate everything properly, with GPT and other large language models out there, you can generate amazing locally adequate copy for your campaigns that also fits your demographic. So imagine a specific prompt for a specific language and your specific demographic and something like that. A real life example, Duolingo, while primarily an English app, saw a surge in conversions when they began sending promotional messages in native languages during campaigns. It's very simple to do this, and you do it directly in the notification setup for Firebase. The heavy lifting is actually in the fact that you have to set up separate campaigns for each language if we're talking about Firebase. So you pick, let's say, the top 10 languages in your app from your analytics data. And if we stick to the schedule we determined in the previous level, that's 10 times 7, meaning 70 campaigns. And that's not counting the in-app messages, which is a lot. So a great alternative if you're serious about making money with your app is CleverTap. I've used them in projects for more than 5 years, and the platforms keeps getting better and better. So here you see an example of how you can set up the campaign once, and in the campaign builder, you just add the copy and visuals for the different languages. So just 7 campaigns instead of 70, which I think sounds a lot better. The next important segmentation you do is something we also mentioned in the previous level, and this is past purchase behavior and mainly not showing the offer to your current subscribers. Keep in mind that this might be rather tricky to set up in Firebase, but let's look at an example of how we can achieve this. So you basically need 2 segments to set up. One of them is your active subscriber segment, and another one would be your past subscriber segment. But let's start with the active subscriber segment. So you go to segments, create a new segment, and yeah, you basically see something like this. After you start building the segment, you have to include users when they make an in-app purchase. This is the first step. Then the second important piece is the fact that we have a membership duration of 379 days. Now, this number is 365 days plus a 14-day grace period. Now, the grace period is something that is specific to your setup, specific to your subscription. So you need to go into the App Store and into Google Play and figure out what your grace period is. But the logic here is if someone makes an in-app purchase, they get into the active subs segment and they stay in there for the period of the subscription plus a 14-day grace period. And if in that period they make another in-app purchase, they remain in the segment. If not, they leave the segment. Okay, another event that I've added here, and this is something that we also looked at in the previous level, is App Store subscription renewals. So you add the App Store subscription renew event as well. So if someone does an App Store subscription renew event, they enter or remain in the segment, meaning re-enter the segment, and if not, they exit. There's also another event that I've added here, which is App Store subscription cancel. Now, unfortunately, this is only available for Android, so not available for iOS. For iOS, it's solely going to have to rely on this logic here. Now, the caveat here is that this obviously is going to work only for annual subscriptions. So if you're selling any other type of subscription or any other type of in-app purchase, this segment definition is not going to be very accurate, obviously. Now you can be adding parameters here and doing other things, but still it's not going to be super accurate. Also, the app that I'm using as an example, this one says 10K. People are going to be in this segment, which I know is wrong. The last thing to consider when building segments in Firebase is the fact that once you build the segment, this is when people actually start entering the segment. So you need to think about this in advance if you actually want to have an accurate representation of your users. If you set your segment today, it's not going to include everybody that is supposed to be in that segment before the time you set the segment. This is also very important to consider because at least my expectation would be once I set the segment, it's going to add everybody that's supposed to be in that segment. But in Firebase, that's not the case. Okay. And yeah, like I said, Firebase does not track subscription expirations. So for Android, we have the App Store subscription cancel event, but we don't have any way to track subscription expirations out of the box with Firebase. And ideally, if you want to build a proper past subscriber segment, and maybe present them with a different offer, with a higher discount, or give them a lifetime promo or something like that, this is not possible to do with Firebase alone. So yeah, at that point in time, it's time to start thinking about adding more tools to your tool belt, more software platforms to the stack that you're using. And something like App Hut or Revenue Cat is great for starting early with them, because initially you can only use them for analytics, measurements, and stuff like that. And later you can start using these platforms for managing your subscriptions, and just using their SDKs to manage subscriptions and not have to deal with that yourself. If you're running a multi-platform application, let's say you have iOS, Android, and potentially you're selling something on the web, or you have a web app, a platform like this would make your life a lot easier. It's a great investment further down the line. These are actually pretty cheap in terms of the pricing. So yeah, that's a great thing to add as early as possible. Now, the reason why I'm mentioning them here is that both of these platforms measure the whole life cycle of your subscriptions, and they can pass those events to your analytics platforms, whatever you're using, including Firebase. So you can add the Revenue Cap SDK or the App Hut SDK to your app, and they will track the events and start sending them to Firebase. Now that we know how to do the segmentation, it's time to think about multi-channel campaigns. We already did something similar in the previous level by combining push notifications and in-app messages. And now it's time to look at the king of conversions, which is email. Now, Firebase doesn't support email campaigns out of the box. And while you can set up something with custom functions and an email marketing API like MailChimp or Firebase extensions, you're far better off sticking with something tailored to this specific purpose, like, for example, the aforementioned CleverTap. So here you can see an updated schedule, the schedule that we looked at before, which is now updated and combines push notifications and email. And what we've done is we've actually added email in specific times, which is related to the push notifications again. Okay. This makes a huge difference because you start communicating with your users outside of their device. Your push notifications and your in-app notifications are solely in your app, meaning if someone doesn't have your app for whatever reason, used to have your app before, doesn't have it anymore on their phone, or is using a different phone or something like that, you won't be able to reach them with only push and in-app. That's why you need email. Now, obviously, for email, you need to have their emails in advance. For most apps, this means using the emails that people use to log in and authenticate in your application to send your email communications. Make sure you collect consents. This is important, but we can talk about using email for your apps in a separate training. But yeah, as you can see, the schedule is updated. It augments the push notification strategy with emails. And now that we have talked about multi-channel campaigns and how you can actually improve your campaign performance by adding a simple email on top of your push notifications, it's time for the actual king of conversions for mobile apps, which is journeys. I know I said email is king for conversions, but journeys are king for conversions in mobile apps. Now, there is no journeys functionality in Firebase. So for journeys, we'll be using CleverTap specifically for the examples. Now, bear in mind that you can very well have both Firebase and CleverTap in the same app. So we're not losing anything we've built so far, and we'll be using Firebase for other things later down the line. So I'm not saying ditch Firebase and start using CleverTap. I'm saying that if you want to set up a journey and you're serious about your campaigns and your campaign performance, you should do it in something like CleverTap. There are other platforms out there that do very similar things. I like CleverTap. Like I said, I've used them before. I'm not saying they're the best or anything like that. It's just my preference. You can use another option. But here, as an example, I'm showing how after someone enters a journey, you send them a push notification right away. Then after they receive a notification is sent, you can wait for a certain period of time and then send them the next notification, which in our case is the email. In here, you can use different triggers. So I'm using the send notification trigger. You can use the open notification trigger. So maybe if they open the notification, you send them an email which relates to the fact that they actually opened the notification. But if you send them a notification and they didn't open it, then you send them a different type of email. Okay. This is the level of personalization that you can achieve with journeys. This is not something you can do with regular campaigns. Okay, because they're not related to one another. And this is the power of journeys. The actual power is in the fact that it is very personalized and you can follow the whole journey and strategically adjust your communications to the users so that they provide the biggest impact. Other amazing thing in journeys is this lower section that I'm showing as an example. So for this example, you've sent them a push, and after you send them a push, you check whether they are in the completed purchase segment, meaning after you send them a push, did they actually make a purchase? And if they did make a purchase, you send them, let's say, a thank you email or something like this, and they exit this journey. Okay, you stop sending them notifications, you stop sending them emails, pushes, and everything else related to that specific journey. So this would be your promo journey in this case, which is very powerful in the sense of it's actually tailored to each specific user. Otherwise, as we saw before, you need to segment your users based on their past purchase behavior. And based on those segments, you can achieve something very similar to this. So this is not the only way to do this. It's just very tailored and specific to each of your users, which I think is a lot more powerful. And maybe that's where you should be looking into if you're serious. And obviously, if they don't make a purchase, they continue along in the journey or something like this. So yeah, that's the power of journeys. A real life example, Grammarly, the writing assistant tool, has effectively used user journeys in their promotional campaigns. A typical journey might start with a teaser email, followed by push reminders, and culminating in a final promotional email. This orchestrated approach has led to big improvements in their conversions during promotional periods specifically. Now we look at another update to our schedule, which is specific to journeys. So if you want to run your campaign as a journey, this is what your schedule might look like. Now, instead of replacing some of the pushes with an email, we combine them to maximize the potential of our campaign. Okay. So let's say we start the journey by adding our users into the Black Friday campaign journey. 2 weeks before, we send them a push. If they engage, they move to the next step. If not, we follow up with an email in 2 days. Okay. Then the email is sent to users who did not engage with the push. So maybe they don't have push enabled. Maybe they don't look at the phone. Maybe there's some other reason. Okay. And you still communicate with them. You still don't miss them. Okay. You can also add more steps here. So if they don't open the first email, you send them another email. If they don't open that email, you send them another email. So, I mean, you can make sure that they see your communication, or at least have a much higher likelihood that they're going to see your communication. And again, this is the power of journeys. Take a look at this, screenshot it. It's going to be available later for download in the course materials, but this is what you need to be thinking about. And this is more or less a great schedule. Okay, so that's it for the level. Let's quickly do a recap. For the advanced level, we looked at segmentation, where we learned the significance of targeting users based on their past behaviors and also language preferences. We looked at multi-channel campaigns, where we explored the enhanced reach and engagement achieved by integrating push notifications with email marketing. And lastly, we looked at journeys, which, as discussed, is the king of conversions when it comes to mobile, because they are orchestrated sequences of messages, and we guide users towards desired actions with them. So that's it for this level, and see you in the next one. Okay. We're now starting to really dive deep. So if you made it this far, congratulations. And we're about to cover the final section of this training on how to maximize the potential of your Black Friday campaigns. Now, as the saying goes, the devil is in the details, and this section is all about optimizations. So we start talking about A/B testing. A/B testing is the name of the game if you want to make it big. It's where you get the most results if you're serious about your app monetization. The reason not a lot of app developers do it is that it's a numbers game. You need to come up with many different variants in order to find a winner. But the beauty of it is that you test them all at once. So you can get to the winner a lot faster. And it also gives you the opportunity to do a more controlled tests. Because if you stretch your testing out too much, then other factors might skew your results and you end up making the wrong conclusions. And this is the closest to a formula for success that I can give you. We'll cover the main sections where you can set up testing for the promo and use them as a starting point for your overall testing strategy. So first we talk about messaging, then we talk about how we present the offer, and then we also talk about price testing. We'll simultaneously explore two of the main types of testing. First is hypothesis testing, and second is multivariate testing. Okay, so we start with messaging. For the messaging, we can use either Firebase or CleverTap, and this is what we call hypothesis testing. Now, I have given some best practice examples here. Feel free to use these directly, or you can come up with your own versions, of course. Now, the first one is one of my favorites. It's one of the things that we've seen bring amazing results for clients, especially because of the way it changes the perception of your offer. And normally we're used to seeing offers presented as a certain percentage off, so 50% off, right? But this requires the user to do calculations in their head. What does this actually mean? What is 50% off? Sure, we can present it on the paywall saying this is normally a $69.99 per year subscription, and you can now get it for $34.99, which is cool and nice. But I think an even better way to do it is to say, with this, you get 6 months free, which is more or less saying the same. It's still 50% off. They pay half of what they would pay for the year, but it just changes the perception that actually they get 6 months free if they buy this at this reduced price. So this is my personal favorite. The next one is, instead of calling it limited time offer, we can say this is our lowest price for 2023. Again, changing the perception a little bit, making it feel a little bit more personalized this way. And I think it could help you bring your conversions a little bit higher. Again, this is the reason why we're testing. We don't say we know which one is better. We don't say this one is better than this one, because it's very subjective. We don't know until we test it. Running a test during Black Friday is amazing because if you do your job right, you're going to have more people seeing your offer. So you're going to be able to collect more data. The last one is, again, a personal favorite of mine, and this is personalization of the messaging. So instead of saying, don't miss our exclusive Black Friday deal, we say, hi, username, let's say, hi, John, don't miss our Black Friday deal. Personalization is key to increasing conversions. And since you already have that information, why not use it? But again, we formulate a hypothesis and we test it because we don't know which one of these is going to actually work better for your audience, for your customer base. Next, we A/B test the way we present our offer. For this, we can use Firebase and the remote config functionality. Now, the examples here work mostly for the paywall, but can also be used for your in-app messages as well. And we'll see some examples of these in action at the end of the section. Now, one important thing to remember here, don't test too many variables at once. So if you're testing the visual presentation, which is the first example here, only test this. So don't combine testing the visual presentation with, let's say, how your call to action looks. because these are two different variables. And if you combine more than one variable in a single test, it is going to skew the results and you have no idea what drove the conversions and what made the conversions higher. So ideally, you would test only one thing at a time. So first, we give an example of testing out the visual presentation of your offer with either a minimalist design with bold text, bold letters, which is going to be variant A. Variant B, you test a vibrant look with lots of images, maybe some animations, maybe some other interesting visual elements in the way you present the offer. The second one is probably one of the most popular ones, and it's actually a big driver for conversion optimizations, and this is your call to action. Now, I've given two examples here. This is very difficult to give a specific example about because it all depends on what you name your offer. So maybe you have a subscription for pro or a subscription for, I don't know, advanced or expert, or you have, it all depends on how you name your subscription product. So it could be Go Pro, for example, the bright red call to action with a simple GoPro, become an expert or something like that. And you test this against something more subtle, which is see offers, for example, or I don't know, start now, claim offer, or something like that. So consider the different options that you have. Again, it depends on the product that you're selling. But yeah, just be creative and come up with a few different options that you can test. Obviously, here I'm also giving two examples only, but with the way that the A/B testing works in Firebase, you can test more than two. You can have three, four, depending on what you come up with. Okay. The third one is the way you present the features in your offer, meaning how you present it. So for variant A, we highlight the most used features in a carousel. So at the top of the screen, have a swipe left and right interaction where you highlight the most used features there. This is your variant A. Your variant B could be presenting your features as a list. So people don't see only one feature at a time, but instead see the whole list as a whole. Again, you can come up with more variants in this same spectrum, but remember the golden rule, test only one thing at a time. So if you're testing the presentation of your features specifically, don't test any other thing at the same time. Now, the cool part about Firebase is that you can run these tests on very limited subsets of your audience. So let's say you can run the first test on 5% of your audience, you can run the second test on another 5% of your audience, and then the third test on another 5% of your audience. So you can actually test all of these at once. Just make sure that they're separate tests so that you can see the results separately. Okay. Now, the last suggestion for testing and what to test is testing different prices. Now, the first one is, I think, the most popular way to test prices, where you have two different price points and you put the same discount on both of them. So what I've given here as an example is that we have the $69.99 offer, which is discounted with 50% to $34.99. And we test that against a $79.99, which reduced with 50% comes to $39.99. Okay. And some of you might feel like this is, I don't know, leading your users to a different price point. Some people might feel like this is borderline lying to your users by raising your price to just reduce it to a higher number. And now I get why this might be an issue, but at the same time, like we said, you can run this test to a very limited amount of people so that not too many people see the price difference if that's something that you're worried about. Once you figure out which one performs better, you can then decide that maybe you want to roll out the more expensive version to everybody, because if it converts more or less the same or even slightly worse than this one, the LTV might still be higher because of the higher price point. What you could also do is you can run a third version of this, which is cheaper than your normal subscription.
And then you can see if actually people convert better on a cheaper price, on your normal price, or on a higher price. And this will give you a great understanding of whether you should normally raise your price or you should, I don't know, lower your price even maybe. So just keep that in mind. I know it might sound like a shady tactic to some, but we've done this many times and we haven't actually seen any blowback or someone being, I don't know, feeling let down or something like that. Remember that this is something that is targeted towards new customers. So ideally, not too many of your previous subscribers would have seen your different price. So they wouldn't feel confused or something like that. Yeah, keep that in mind. Now, one thing I forgot to mention is that you can run this type of A/B test either in Firebase or in RevenueCat. Both have some benefits and both have some shortcomings. RevenueCat, for example, does not allow you to run more than two test versions. So in RevenueCat, you can only do two. In Firebase, you can do more, but it might require a little bit more dev work to set up the test. Nonetheless, both work fine if you set them up correctly, and you don't want to test, I would say, more than two. Then RevenueCat is more than enough, works perfectly. And if you're already using RevenueCat, yeah, it's very easy to set up if your paywall is dynamic, of course. Another thing I advise you to test is testing adjusted country specific pricing versus non-adjusted country specific pricing. What I mean by that is that when you run your regular pricing options in the stores and you set your base price, for example, at 69.99 US, then for every other country in the world where there's country specific pricing, what the App Store would do is they would just convert the price and add tax on top of this. So actually, in most countries, your price would actually be higher than what it is in the United States because of the tax. For example, all EU countries will get a higher price because of the tax. So what we've seen work great in projects is adjusting the country specific prices to country specific prices based off your understanding of what the market is ready to pay for your app. This goes from market research and yeah, just figuring out what people are willing to pay for an app like yours. Yeah, and just bear in mind that you're gonna have to create different products for this to work. Meaning, let's say your normal non-adjusted product is what you normally run, and you would have to create a different product, a different subscription, which has the country specific prices adjusted. It's a little bit of manual work in the stores, but it's no big deal. And you can start with doing it with the larger markets for your app, figure out if it's working well. And if it is, then you can go ahead and adjust prices for more countries. The last one is testing different discount percentages. And this is probably the most resource intensive of these because you not only have to make sure that you set up the products properly in the stores, but you also need to adjust your messaging. So you need to make sure that you don't send someone a 50% off email and then they get a 60% off offer. Even though I'm sure nobody would actually mind to get a higher percentage offer, but also make sure that the opposite doesn't happen. You send someone a 60% off offer and then they get a 50% off in the app. So that's why this is a little bit more tricky to set up, but you have the bandwidth. It could be great information not just for this promo season, but also for all your promos and Black Friday 2024. Yes, so this concludes the section of A/B testing. Now, we need to mention something which is very important. Both RevenueCat and Firebase give you the ability to analyze the results in close to real time. In Firebase, it actually takes a while for the results to show up. So if you're running a 1 day promo, you might not even be able to see the results for that short period of time. So just bear in mind that those events, even though they're tracked in real time, the results of the tests sometimes are not real time. There is some delay to the results in RevenueCat as well. So this might make more sense if you have an extended period of running your offer. Let's say you run it from Black Friday all the way to Cyber Monday, or you run from Black Friday all the way to the end of Cyber Week or something like that. So just keep that in mind and make sure you understand that the results are not going to be real time. Now, the last thing we'll cover is paywall optimizations. This is a very specific question for your application, so it's difficult to give great recommendations and examples. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you some apps that I think are doing a great job with the strategies that we've seen work very well. And we start with highlighting the offer. Now, as you can see, the screenshots, they're coming from a service called Mobbin. Actually, I suggest if you haven't already, you can check them out. They have great resources on different flows, different screens, and everything else inside of an app. But yeah, we're talking about highlighting the offer, and this is a great example. It's at 75% off today. It highlights the benefits of the offer. It says what's the difference between the regular price and the price today. And the call to action, I think, is also great, and it saves 75% today. Okay. So this is a great way to highlight the offer. They also have another version which compares the free to the premium version of their app. The second very important part is creating some kind of urgency. And when you combine these two by highlighting the offer and the fact that it's potentially today, this also creates some urgency, but then also maybe adding some kind of counter, adding an end date, a cutoff date, saying there's only 48 hours left, there's only 72 hours left, something like that. You would just help your users understand that this is a limited time offer. So if they want to get it, they need to take action right away. And I'll use the opportunity to show some examples of optimizations you could do also outside of the promo. Now, there are great examples with screenshots of doing this for the promo. This is an example for a free trial, actually, but you could do a very similar thing for your promo. So you could show, instead of highlighting the timeline of what happens during the free trial, you could highlight what happens during your promo. You could say today you pay the discounted price, you use the discounted product for 12 months, 3 days before we send you a reminder that it's gonna that your subscription is gonna renew at the new price and stuff like that. You tell them that they can cancel anytime before. So this is a great tool to increase the trust between you and the consumer. Another great idea is to add some testimonials to your paywall. This also has a great example of creating urgency with what I mentioned, just like 47 hours left with this offer. But just highlighting good reviews from your customers, whether that's from the App Store directly or from your website or wherever else you can get some nice testimonials and reviews. It's a great idea to put them on the paywall just to increase the social proof for your product. Last, this might be a little bit of a gimmick, but it could work great if you test it with your audience and you see that it's converting better. And the reason why that would be is that here they're presenting 7-day free trial as an optional promo. And here the 7-day free trial is actually optional. Now, why would someone do something like that? It's because, yeah, there's a lot of people that get the free trial and then cancel the renewal to the regular price just to make sure that they don't get charged by accident. They don't forget to disable the renewal, something like that. So this could be a great way to reduce the churn between the trial and the actual conversion to paid. Okay, so to recap, in this level, we looked at A/B testing, why it's very important. And if you want to play the game at the highest level, this is what you need to do. And we discussed different ways to do it during Black Friday and for this promotion specifically. And then we also looked at the various ways that you can optimize your paywall, both for Black Friday, but then also for your regular, normal paywall and the things you can do there to convert your users better. Yeah, so that was the whole training. I would like to congratulate you for making it this far. And I hope we've been able to give you some ideas on how to convert your users better and sell more subscriptions during Black Friday. And yeah, thank you very much for this opportunity, and see you in the next one.